Welcome to Certain Point of View's Trade School, where each episode a different host talks about a comic book trade paperback that they loved and why they love it. Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken, and yeah, I am back with yet another trade school, but that's because I love comic books, and this is a show where we get to talk about our love for specific comic books, really for specific trade paperbacks. That's the name of the show, and I'm back, and I want to talk about a trade that I really like, as evidenced by the nature of the show. I want to talk about the Incredible Hercules Secret Invasion, which is, as you would infer from the subtitle there, the Hercules crossover with Secret Invasion, the big event that happened in Marvel Comics where Skrulls invaded Earth, and was later adapted into an MCU TV series that most people watched the first episode and then checked out of because it wasn't very good. And I don't really like the comic crossover that much either, but I love this specific part of the crossover. I love the Hercules section of the Secret Invasion crossover. It's really cool. And I'm going to talk about why I think it's really cool, but I want to credit the people who are involved in making this book. It's written by Greg Pak and Fred Van Lente. With penciler is Rafa Sandoval. The inkers are Roger Bonnet with Greg Adams. Colorist is Marty Good, Gracia, with Denise Calero and Raul Trevino. I'm sorry I butchered those names. And cover artists are John Romita Jr., Klaus Johnson, and Dean White. John Romita Jr.'s is the art that is used on the cover for the actual book. It's not the best cover. It's not the best front cover. I really like the back cover. The back cover is a really cool shot of the eternal god of the Skrulls fighting Hercules, and it's a really cool shot. But yeah, so that's that is getting into what the book is. So this comes at the time when Hercules had taken over the Incredible Hulk's book, coming off of World War Hulk. Hercules had been an ally of the Hulk during the situation, but kind of was playing it as no, we gotta be reasonable, but I'm on your side, dude. Chill out, because he had become the new ally of Amadeus Cho, who allied himself with the Hulk during World War Hulk, and so this created this fun buddy situation where Cho and Hercules were on the run together as this little guy who was incredibly smart, and then this big oaf who has a lot of experience, and has like some brains to him, but they're buried behind the fact that he defaults to hitting things first, and is also a sexual dynamo. Hercules is wonderfully able to hook up with lots of characters throughout the course of the run of this series, and that includes in this book, and is a funny part of just the nature of it. Amadeus Cho is a young adolescent who is very much horny and is coming into his own feelings as a young adolescent. Meanwhile, he's buddied up with this guy who is just getting it on throughout the whole thing, and it's this very funny dynamic for it. For anyone who watched the recent Knight of the Seven Kingdoms series, it has that knight and squire kind of vibe to it, where you've got a big lunkhead as the knight and then a much smarter character as the squire. That's the sort of vibe of this whole series. I also like to think of it as being a split up version of the Billy Batson with Captain Marvel dynamic, where they're two separate characters. And I think that also works just fine in terms of viewing these characters in a Superman analogous kind of way. But getting into the actual story of Secret Invasion, because this is, I believe, volume 4. It doesn't list the volume on here, but it recounts Incredible Hercules 116 to 120. It picked up the numbering from Incredible Hulk So that's why the numbering is relatively high there. It is, like I said, I believe only volume 4, going 6 issues at a time. Anyway, so the thing is, this is a crossover with Secret Invasion, and so it opens with a little bit of a reset that is fairly important in terms of the story that we get, where Hercules, who is on the run from S.H.I.E.L.D. at this point, along with Amadeus Cho, has found Athena, the goddess of wisdom, who happens to be Hercules' sister, and they are on the run together. And so it opens with a cute scene of Cho and Athena doing like trivia, just like general like universe trivia with each other because they're just so smart with each other, which is fun. And they go to where the slumbering celestial is standing on Earth and just perpetually asleep. And while there, because this is concurrent with the Neil Gaiman, that Neil Gaiman run of the Eternals that he did with John Romita Jr., I believe. So anyway, so this is concurrent with that one. Hercules gets attacked by Athena, the Athena equivalent from the Eternals, and Icarus of the Eternals, who have mistaken him for Hero or Gilgamesh or the Forgotten One. It's a character who has had many names, but is their version of Hercules, in addition to having played other roles in heroism. Like I said, he's Gilgamesh from Sumerian mythology. So he is responsible for a couple of Hercules' labors, like, and they go into how it sort of worked, where Hercules was trying to clean the Aegean stables, and instead it got washed out by Gilgamesh. And so that's just like the kind of dynamic they have, this like friendly rivalry, and eventually they hook up, which becomes a funny detail. They are like, after this point, they are sharing a bed together when they are roommates, which is a fun detail, because it's just these two bear men, and it's I find it really hilarious. But go them. Anyway, so Athena comes in, gets into a fight with Athena. They're not friends, despite this only goes one of two ways. Either they're the best of friends, or they're the worst of enemies, and they're kind of the worst of enemies, because they are. and then Gilgamesh and Hercules become the best of friends. That's the way it works. So they don't get along. Anyway, the heroes fight, and then Makari, the Mercury equivalent from the Eternals, runs in, and he, at this point, it's a he. The Eternals can resurrect very easily, and so sometimes he has been a she, like in the movies, but at this point it's a he. So he then says that the interpretation of the sleeping celestial that made them think that Gilgamesh was Hercules, it was wrong. It's actually, they're actually talking about Forgotten Ones, and it's a whole other thing. And so the Eternals go off to do their own thing. Meanwhile, in the shadow of the sleeping celestials, Athena does what she actually came to do, which is she summons a council of all the gods. And so this then opens up the actual tie-in to Secret Invasion, which is that that the danger of the Skrull invasion is that it will destroy Earth's faith, and that it's a religious war as much as a physical war, and that the invasion, being a religious one, will mean that the pantheons of Earth are under siege by the gods of the Skrulls and all of the pantheons that they have conquered. And so it is decided that they are going to send a group of champions. Now, this is why the Eternals part is important. The first champion that is selected, I forget the exact order, but the first one I want to talk about is Ajak of the Eternals, who I believe this one was Salma Hayek in the Eternals movie. So again, genders don't really matter with the Eternals that much, but because they get resurrected, and who cares? but this one is elected as a god representing the Aztec, Mayan, and Incan mythologies. He played the part of a hero in their roles in their societies, and so he is selected as their champion. And it's important to remember what the deal with Eternals are, that they're god adjacent. They're very powerful. They have god magic, the science magic. It said it's very adjacent to being a god, but it's not quite being a god. But it straddles the line enough that they are able to deal with the sort of weird divine stuff, and so Ajax is a really interesting candidate to be part of this quest. They're very powerful. They have more uniform abilities than the gods normally do. In that they typically have super strength. They have eye lasers. They have a degree of invulnerability, flight, super speed. They have the basic Superman suite, usually to a much lower degree. And then in addition to that, they have like energy manipulation abilities. They have some illusion and psionic abilities. And then each one of them is better at those to a certain degree. And then there is Hyperion, who is an Eternal from another reality, who is the Superman part of that, better to a certain degree. But guys like Icarus are comparably like physically tough to Hyperion, although part of that is that he uses psionics to bolster his physical strength. Characters like Circe are really good at the transmutation thing. Sprite is traditionally very good at the illusion thing and is the one responsible for their most recent reset. Eternals get reset all the time. It's very similar to the Norse mythology Ragnarok cycle. That is also a recent thing that happened because they happen a lot of times in Marvel continuity. Anyway, so that's the deal with Ajax. The gods of the North elect Snowbird from Alpha Flight, which is cool. I really dig her. She's really cool here. I normally have not thought that much of her. Like, she's been used well at times. There's a really cool scene in an X-Men Alpha Flight crossover where she turns into a Wolverine as part of a fight, and it notes that like Wolverine, the superhero, is like the closest we can get to a Wolverine, but like still not quite there in terms of ferocity. And I dig that part here. And it's fun here to see her again. She's very cool. She plays well in the God sphere. Like I think I think I prefer her doing the divine stuff over the mundane superhero stuff. Then there is God, I'm going to be terrible with these names. There is the God Eater, Atum, from Egyptian mythology. So he is, I believe, a bigger Marvel villain that is sort of an outside of Pantheon thing that eats gods, but they also link for him to be this elder god from the Egyptian Pantheon, which is cool. I don't know if that was pre-established or if that was established here. I do know that the God Eater was seen recently in a Hercules story that they did. They did a Hercules Hulk crossover set in a time traveling Hercules, or maybe it was just Hulk ending up on Olympus, and then Hercules hanging out, or like they Hulk made friends with like the Titans and like the Cyclopses, and Hercules killed them at the behest of Zeus, and it's supposed to be a flashback. So I just don't know what the exact flashbacky-ness of it was. They get this Japanese character. I'm so bad with the names here, and I'm not I could try reading it, but I'm just going to be butchering it. I swear I'm apologizing. Who is this shape-shifting baddie who has been a recurring baddie in the various Marvel god adjacent sort of Pantheon things. He's a shapeshifter as well. So that's 3 shapeshifters, by the way, Snowbird, God Eater, and this guy. And so they're going up against the Skrulls, and that's interesting that it's really small. Like another Pantheon donates a dream ship made up of like cool celestial dream speak. It's like the rainbow bird or something like that gave rise to this thing, and its sails are made of like people's wishes. It's a very cool like the language is this purple prose that's very, very cool for a god kind of story. And so that's really cool. And then they go on this quest and they go through the dream time and they encounter like all these things along the way of the dream time before arriving and coming to blows with ultimately they first come to blows with gods of all these like conquered pantheons, but then they come to blows with the two main gods of the Skrull pantheon. And it's so cool, the concept, because the Skrulls are the deviants of their world. So the Marvel society, like Marvel has this like cosmic idea that the Eternals and the deviants are recurring things in various races because of celestial manipulation of worlds. And so that on the world on Earth, they attained kind of a homeostatic balance where neither one really dominated. And so sort of the middle species, humanity, was able to be the dominant species of our world. But there are Eternals, which are these, again, godlike beings. And then there are deviants, which are supposed to be these devilish shape-shifting things. And the Skrulls are the deviants of their race. And at a certain point, the deviants won their world. And so on their world, the Skrulls totally took over. And they wiped out all of the mundane Skrulls of their people, and they killed all of the Eternals except for one. And so that one becomes the god of their inner core, the self that is true to them no matter who they transform into. He becomes an actual god to them, as opposed to just being an Eternal. But he was already an Eternal, so he was already kind of god adjacent. And then the leader of the deviants becomes the god of their shapeshifting. And so it becomes this interesting binary, which is the ever-changing nature of the Skrulls being shapeshifters and their inner core, which is represented by the Eternal. So it's this really great dichotomy. I love the Skrull pantheon. I think it's super cool. I think it's awesome. And we get an awesome god fight between the God Squad, as they get jokingly called throughout the book, and this awesome team of two truly powerful gods that represent everything that is cool about Skrulldom. And, you know, spoiler, the heroes win. It's the giant spoiler for that. The heroes win. And when they win, it's represented as breaking the spirits of the Skrulls in the actual war that's happening. So that the turning point is represented as occurring because the Skrull's spirit, the dynamic that was driving their religious fervor, is broken by killing the gods. And that's such a cool idea there, where Hercules as a god is able to be more effective by waging war on the very concept of the thing that drives the war, as opposed to waging war in the mundane sense of being a soldier on the battlefield. And that is truly mythic. That is exactly what I am here for when we're talking about stories with god superheroes. And that is so cool. So that's why I wanted to rave about it. It's a really cool story. I just reread it today just to refresh my memory on it, and I absolutely adore it. It's a super cool story. So wanted to praise that one, and I think you should check it out. It's available as a trade, and the entire run of Incredible Hercules is available on the Marvel app. And I would actually just highly recommend that run in general. But specifically, this arc is the one that I would really recommend if you're just checking out one story from the Incredible Hercules run. It's such a cool take on a god engaged in a bigger crossover kind of story. So really recommend it. Again, it's Hercules 116 to 120, or so highly recommend it. The trade is really I mean, it's a pretty straightforward trade paperback. There isn't like a lot of like special features to it or anything, but it's a good story and really worth checking out. So if that sounds cool to you and you enjoyed listening to me, I highly recommend that you check out other things that I work on. At the time of this episode dropping, the two main shows I want to recommend are Men of Steel and Another Pass. Again, I am Case Aiken. I am the host of those two shows. I'm also the host of most of the stuff that goes up on the YouTube channel for certain POV. So if you are more into that kind of thing, that is is that's me. This is I. Anyway, so again, I'm Case Aiken. You can find me at all of the Certain POV kind of things. You can find me on most social media platforms at Case Aiken. You can find me on my Instagram, which I am holding on to for dear life. My AIM screen name as Quetzalcoatl5, which is QUETZALCOATL5. And otherwise, I hope you check out all the stuff that we've got going on here at Certain POV. There's a ton of great shows. I can't recommend any of them enough. And I think that there's just really cool stuff that we're doing. There's Fun and Games with Matt and Jen. There's Reignite. There's Long Live the Legion. There's We Have Issues. There's Jukebox Vertigo. There's all kinds of shows that are on hiatus that you should go and check out their backlog, because most of them are evergreen and they're very cool. So just lots of cool stuff that we've been doing on the network. So you can find that at certainpov.com. And again, find the stuff that I'm specifically working on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/certainpovmedia. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a great week, and otherwise, happy reading. Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.